6:15 at 5 p.m. in the boardroom.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are adjourned. Call this meeting of the Wireless Authority Board of Directors to order. Any amendments to the agenda?
No, sir.
Public comment? Anyone wishing to address the Wireless Authority Board of Directors may do so at this time. Seeing none, bring it back to the members of the board. Anyone have a report?
No, sir.
Okay. Consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. County Attorney?
No report this time, Mr. Chairman.
Any report? I think there's any presentations. Anything else to?
I move to adjourn to Tuesday, April 21st, 2015, at 6 p.m. in the boardroom.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We're adjourned. Call this meeting of the King George County Board of Supervisors to order. Any amendments to the agenda?
No, sir.
We're a little early for public comments, so we'll go to consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Discussion. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The constitutional officers, report of the county attorney, sir.
Yes, one item, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this concerns a request for a deed of easement over the western portion of the county parking lot adjacent to the courthouse. In or around 1993, the county undertook a condemnation proceeding against property owned by Elmer and Marceline Morris for improving, widening, paving, construction, and reconstruction of an entrance and parking area for public use, a drain field, and stormwater management at the courthouse complex. The condemnation was resolved, and the settlement agreement provided that the Board of Supervisors would not impede access to the Morris's property. That is tax map parcel 24153, the property directly to the east, or the west of the parking lot and behind the sheds there in the parking lot. This included the right of the Morrises to connect a road serving their property to Courthouse Drive. The right of access granted by the settlement agreement, however, was never formally memorialized by an easement. The Morrises now wish to exercise their right of access for their own benefit and the benefit of the trustees of the Trinity United Methodist Church. It's my understanding that their intent is to utilize this egress easement for access and parking behind the church. I reviewed the documents. Their attorney contacted me and provided the necessary documents to review the agreement, the settlement order, the plat depicting the easement, and a proposed deed of easement. I reviewed those documents, and I see no reason that would impede the granting of that easement. It would certainly facilitate the church's access to their property, and it would be consistent with the settlement agreement entered in that case. With your approval, I will come back before you at the next board meeting with a resolution to approve the deed of easement and the plat, and provide more information going forward. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have at this time.
I see, pretty clear.
It is, and I'm happy to keep you posted, and we'll get that done.
Can you provide that information?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's what I was.
Just listening to you, it'll be much easier if I could.
Right, that's what I said I would do. Right. Just wanted to advise you, and we'll follow up with more information and the draft resolution for the next board meeting. Thank you.
Sir, thank you. Okay, it's 6:15. Public comment. Anyone wishing to address the Board of Supervisors may do so at this time.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim Hall, from my sworn area. My objective today is to ensure that official correspondence for our King George County Board of Supervisors is preserve and that transparency in government affairs is maintained. Mr. Dale Sisson and Mr. Sidell Brooks use personal email accounts to conduct official King George County government business for more than a decade. For this, I cite the video of King George Board of Supervisors meeting recorded on 7 January 2014, as well as the King George Board of Supervisors website, accessed by me on 7 March 2015. However, the state of Virginia has guidelines that outlines what constitutes an acceptable electronic repository. For the remainder of this discussion, I will cite the Commonwealth of Virginia's email management guidelines published in May 2009. And there's also a link easily accessible by the internet on using the Google search. The email management guidelines have authority for King George County government use of email for official correspondence. For example, in paragraph 1.1 in the scope, it says, quote, the guidelines establish basic best practices related to creation, maintenance, use, and disposition of public records created by all state and local government employees using electronic mail applications. Paragraph 1.3 under authority, quote, these guidelines are issued by the library board under authority granted by the Code of Virginia. The creation of regulations and guidelines for the management of public records is delegated to the Library of Virginia. The email management guidelines also create authority even over personal email accounts used for official purposes. Paragraph 1.4 under definitions, electronic record means a public record whose creation, storage, and access requires the use of an automated system or device. Ownership of the hardware, software, or media used to create, store, or access the electronic record has no bearing on the determination of whether such record is a public record. However, it is easy to recognize that the Virginia guidelines require a system much more robust than a personal email account that is at the discretion of a single individual. Paragraph 3.1, electronic mail system states, agencies should manage public records created or received on electronic mail systems in accordance with the provisions of these guidelines and as described in the Virginia Public Records Management Manual and Records Retention and Disposition Schedules. Paragraph 2, agency and locality responsibilities. Quote, the effort to develop and implement an email management system is the responsibility of the agency or locality and involves a cooperative effort between the Library of Virginia and the agency or locality records management staff members, agency or locality administration, legal counsel, and information technology departments. The head of each agency or locality should ensure that the management of email records incorporates the following elements. And there's several of them. I'm only going to address two of them. Paragraph 2.1, quote, assigning responsibility to develop and implement agency or locality-wide program for management of email records created, received, maintained, used, stored, and notifying the Library of Virginia for the names and title of the persons assigned the records officer responsibility. Paragraph 2.7, quote, specifying the location, manner, and media in which electronic mail records will be maintained to meet operational archival requirements. I would find it quite interesting to know who within King George County government is responsible for certifying that Mr. Sisson's and Mr. Brooks' personal email accounts were an acceptable medium to meet those two requirements. The new .gov email accounts for Mr. Sisson and Mr. Brooks that were established and advertised for use on the King George Board of Supervisors website on 16 March 2015 begins to address the Commonwealth's guidance. However, the issue now becomes whether these two extensive repositories of official King George government correspondence will be properly archived. Again, the email management guideline provides directions specifically in paragraph 321. Email accounts must not be deleted until a supervisor certifies that all public records and email accounts have been transferred to another record-keeping system or that any retention periods have passed and there's been litigation, audit, investigation, or request for records pursuant to the Virginia Freedom of Information. The recent revelations of Hillary Clinton's use of private email accounts used to conduct official Department of State business and what appears to be the deliberate deletion of all records from that account raises the question of the risk King George County government has had for more than a decade because of Mr. Sisson's and Mr. Brooks' use of private email accounts. Under these requirements, my question to the King George County Board of Supervisors comes down to this. What is the plan to be implemented by the King George County government officials that transfers, archives, and ensures the completeness, integrity, and security of the official records formerly stored on the personal email account systems used by Mr. Dale Sisson and Mr. Sidell Brooks? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. The tourism fund is an extra 5% tax on hotels and bed and breakfasts over and above what other retailers pay in this county. The county gets to roll 3% of this into the general fund, but it is required by the Code of Virginia to spend the remaining funds to, and I quote, spent solely for the tourism and travel, marketing of tourism, or initiative that, as determined after consultation with local tourism industry organizations, including representatives of lodging properties located in the county, attracts travelers to the locality, increasing occupancy at lodging properties and generating tourism revenues in the locality. So, what have the hotels said about how the money was spent in 2014 and what benefits did they see? I'm especially interested in what their opinion is of the $45,000 spent on ball field improvements that Mr. Sisson requested last year. I have seen no notice of how it will be spent this year, so may I suggest that you directly contact the hotels and get their input. This is an extra tax on them. Perhaps if you did, the money would actually increase tourism here, which would bring in more tax revenues to the general fund without having to raise anyone's tax rate. The $120,000 that is given to the tax fund is approximately 0.5% of your tax rate. That if you increase that every year, you wouldn't have to raise people's taxes. Speaking of tax rates, I support the small increase you are suggesting to our property tax this year, as well as fully funding the school budget, which I believe we're not going to do this year. We've got $500,000 or something of that nature. So you have trapped us in a downward spiral of underfunding county departments, which lead to substandard county services and schools, which drive away new businesses and residents from locating here. May I suggest you work hard to review your county policies and offer incentives to new businesses that want to relocate here. Improving the school's ranking in the state would also greatly help here. You have 4 funding mechanisms as I see it. Joe has unilaterally refused to accept grants paid for by our own state and federal taxes, and you are against growth in the county, so raising property taxes or increasing the businesses are what remains to increase our tax revenues. So in this, please, I suggest that you please develop a strategic business growth plan, which includes zoning to clean up the appearance of our front yard with 301, which travelers see, and tying in with the joint land use study suggestions, create a way forward to keep our county rural, yet provide a diverse tax base, even after the closure of the landfill. If you wait too long, its closure and loss of $6 million to our tax coffers will make this very difficult to achieve for our children and leave you with a failed legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Veazey.
My name is James Campbell. I live in the Michigan District. King George is fast becoming one of the top cigarette smuggling areas in the East Coast. When I heard Sheriff Dempsey's report the other night that we had undocumented people from the Middle East smuggling cigarettes out of King George to raise money to fund terrorism, and that the mafia was moving in for the money-making potential, I was amazed and scared. We've had one armed robbery in a tobacco shop in Dalton. Supervisors, please investigate what can be done, what you can do. I don't know. I don't have that answer. I'm coming to you to ask you to see what you can do to try to mitigate this. People and businesses will not want to move into the cigarette smuggling center of the East Coast. Some of the big people and businesses that are here now may not want to stay. How many deputies are we going to have to hire to handle the crimes this type of activity is going to spawn? This scares me. Please, do whatever you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cameron.
Good evening, my name is Nadine Lucas, and I'm standing here today as the chairperson for the Ralph Bunch Advisory Committee. And what I've just handed you, so as not to try to belabor this point, are pictures that I've taken of examples of what the display will look like that Mary Washington University is preparing on the road to desegregation of King George County. The first one you see, this is basically the size of what the panel will be. This is one that was taken at Mary Washington. The second one is the back side of it, and I want your attention to how that looks on the end, because I'll show you a different one later. Then I went to FedEx, which is where we're looking at possibly purchasing the units. And this is what the FedEx package one looks like. And pay attention on the next two ones to the difference in what the bottom looks like. And as you can tell from the first picture, it's set up such that you could actually have a little light over it if you wanted to shine on it. And what I'm here today for, I know that the Dominion Virginia Power provided $1,250 that was put in the county treasurer, and that was for the purpose of helping to defray the costs on the project that we're now having, that it was sort of worked out that way. It was for the interpretation of that story, and will be the interpretation of that story. So I'm coming to you tonight to ask that we may use that money to provide to Mary Washington University to help defray the costs. Currently, the second figure, the one that you looked at on FedEx, the price of that is $220 per panel. You should have at least 8 panels, as far as I know, as of today. There has been money spent for pictures that they have gotten from archives, and the budget is estimated between $3 and, I'm on the high side, $3,000 and $5,000. So we're asking for that money to be used to help defray the cost, along with what Mary Washington their class will be contributing, which is $1,300. I think that's how much she had in their budget. And then the balance of it will be paid for by the Rock Punch Alumni Association. So I apologize for coming to you today at this point. I would have gotten on the agenda, but I just found out about the information today and was able to pull it together. So whatever we need to do to make that happen, I would ask that you please let us know.
Mr. Chairman, one question is, the panels, what are they? Are they made out of vinyl?
The sheet itself is sort of like a vinyl, like it's not real thick though. It's very nice quality. Well, actually, the way this works, this is standing up, and you saw the bar that's in the back. All of it comes down. You take the bar out, and this folds down into the bottom of this, and then you can carry it.
Thank you, Ms. Lucas.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the board? Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the members of the board. Mr. Krasicki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. See, on March 18th, I participated in the Rappahannock River Basin Commission meeting hosted by City of Fredericksburg. Later that